Colin Key from IT Solutions. I also have Beth Alada and Mike Ahern. Between the three of us, we're going to walk through the features, to do some demos, some live stuff, if you will. There's also some additional information that we'll walk through having to do with licensing and deprecated features and the usual things that happen with new releases, compatibility stuff. Just some kind of framing around what FileMaker gives. Claris, from the perspective of us as a company, ITS, we do FileMaker development, and from the perspective of Claris, builds a software that we all work on. They position it as offering the ideal path to deliver modern custom apps to your clients, using a platform that you already know. So increasing building capabilities into the space that we already develop in. Claris helps problem solvers create the apps that make businesses better, whether they are a professional developer or even if they don't have any deep development skills, right? So serving the pro set and sort of the walking into the experience new in a low-code environment. When businesses can't find the apps they need, they can rapidly build those apps using modern tech like cloud, mobile, AI, and then connect them together with other apps. So you can automate workflows and deliver even more value. So you can do this stuff yourself with support from the Claris community, or if you don't have time, there's other Claris partners who can help. So this is a statement that it might be familiar to people who've been at previous DevCons. In order to provide the tools to create the best modern app experiences, Claris has defined a vision to make powerful technologies available to everyone. And so there's some details to each section of that sentence. Powerful technologies means things like cloud, AI, integrations, technologies that your customers require in their modern apps, and to be available everywhere, right? So putting it out in the cloud, but also available on every device, on-prem or offline. And low-code technology, so that it's accessible to all users, but also extensible by pro developers. So that's the framing around what the Claris FileMaker environment, platform gives us as developers and users of the technology. Which takes us to the next chapter of FileMaker, Claris FileMaker. So moving away from annual monolithic releases, Claris FileMaker 19 is the first open platform in this long storied history, which means more features, more updates and functionality in your hands faster and more frequently. We'll talk about that a little bit later. In this release, developers can extend the platform using AI, JavaScript, or even build shareable packaged add-ons to build modern custom apps that improve workplaces. So that kind of leads into, what is this about for developers, right? Much of the early enthusiasm around, this release from the community is really based on the advancements Claris has made around integrating JavaScript right into the FileMaker platform. So let's talk about that a little bit. JavaScript integration is going to be a game changer for pro developers who are looking to extend beyond native FileMaker tools for design and functionality. So all the widgets and calendar items that are complicated to build, or you right now to integrate into FileMaker 18, using web viewers and so on. Becomes a lot easier with FileMaker 19 because of a few key things that they've added. You can directly embed things in your apps like maps, animated graphics, data visualization, and more. And the cool thing about JavaScript is that it's got a large community of developers who are constantly updating a vast collection of JavaScript libraries like Vue, D3, and these contain open source features and functionality. So this is now an unlocked universe of tools lying at the fingertips of pro developers without ever having to leave the FileMaker platform. I mean, yes, to go lift some JavaScript from our website, but it's all happening in the FileMaker design surface. With Claris FileMaker 19, Claris is continuing to deliver on the expectation of reliable custom apps while meeting new standards of visualization and capabilities that customers have always wanted. So let's take a look at that a little bit. It is true that JavaScript could be used in a web viewer in previous versions, but FileMaker 19 provides a more elegant method of integration, which is going to save you more time on your projects. So in FileMaker 19, JavaScript in a web viewer and FileMaker scripts communicate directly and pass information between them through a new script step and a new function. So the new script step is perform JavaScript in web viewer. It's supported on Pro, Go, and WebDirect. And while there's a couple things to know about it, while the JavaScript function is being, the script is being performed, the user isn't going to be able to cancel the operation. It's just going to do its thing. If the web page isn't finished loading when the script is performed, it's going to return an error. It doesn't perform, and I don't know the exact error number, but you get one, and that's enough for me to know right now. So the other piece of it is a JavaScript function, which is embedded in your JavaScript, and it's called FileMaker.performScript. And you name the script that you want to run, and you pass a parameter to it, if you want to. JavaScript can call this function to run the FileMaker script. So imagine if you have a button, embedded in some, JavaScript and HTML that you put into a web viewer. Click that button, it calls this, and then it runs a script in the database that you're in. It's going to run in the current context, meaning that if the thing is running and you change the record, it might change the result. Pass parameters for context, info that is relevant at the time that you're initiating the call. The function does not wait for the FileMaker script to finish, so it's not going to return a value to the function. All right, so that's JavaScript. I'm really excited about this piece, add-ons. So we'll talk about this a little bit. This is sort of a segue into add-ons. FileMaker, Claris recognizes that not every developer has JavaScript skills or the dedicated time to learn a new language. And as we said at the beginning of this presentation, the vision is to have powerful technologies available to everyone. So coming soon, Claris will release a new modular JavaScript-based set of add-on components. We have add-on components available in 19. The suite of things that you can add is pretty limited, but it's extensible, and you can just keep adding to that library, and that's what I understand Claris is intending to do. So you'll be able to drag and drop feature-rich add-ons like Kanban boards, photo galleries, barcode generators, and stuff like that. And calendars, right? Wouldn't it be nice to drag a calendar onto a layout and have it work? Well, we're just about there. That said, snapping together robust apps faster than ever with add-on components doesn't begin and end with JavaScript, right? So it's not just a way to get this, technology, JavaScript stuff quick started for you. You can build your own. You can get add-on components from other vendors. I think this might be a place where people put stuff on the marketplace. What an add-on package is it is a function that you can, in layout mode on your solution file, select an add-on from the left-hand side of the design surface and install it. And it will install the tables, all the layouts, all the scripting for that add-on. So if you imagine a function like, I want to do HTML email, using curl, maybe there's an add-on package for that, and it'll just slot it right in, and it'll work. And then maybe you do a little bit of wiring to connect to it, But it's a wonderfully powerful technology. And Claris has devoted a lot of time and resources to building XML representations of the platform to be used as a foundation for this kind of technology and the potential for modular components. You saw it a couple versions ago when we had add-on tables. Remember add portal, and you say, I want to add it from this table or this table. Oh, I want to add an add-on table. well, this is an extension of that. The cool thing about this is that, as of right now, you can create your own add-on packages using the save a copy as add-on package. I've tested this before. It's really kind of neat. You create it, you put it into your extensions. I can't remember what library it is. Maybe there's a way that it does it automatically. But once it's there, then you can use it anytime you want to. And you can really start to experiment with that now. Next thing I want to talk about briefly is AI. So there's a couple new enhancements on iOS, and we're going to start taking advantage of some of those things. I'll start talking about CoreML. And this is iOS and Mac, but not Windows. CoreML is machine learning. It's a framework that Apple has come out with. It's available on iOS and Mac OS. And with machine learning, computer systems can essentially start teaching themselves and make accurate predictions. So what are some of the things you can do? Let's say there's a machine learning model for sentiment analysis. So a computer system can reveal the tone of a message, like feedback on our company's website. Your solution sucks. I guess that's a negative review. It'll know that, right, by some of the wording. Which might be useful for building analysis into a solution. Or maybe you want to see who the artist is of a photograph or a painting you come across. In the scenario that's on the screen up here, we're given a part that we're not familiar with. I don't know what this part is. I take a photo of it, and CoreML identifies the part and determines if it is an item we have in stock. And then this is the workflow we're talking about. After taking a photo, a list of potential results is produced along with the model's percentage of confidence. So the JSON that we're looking at on the right has made a determination based on an analysis of the file that this has got a 99.8% probability that it's a fuel filter. But maybe it's a headlight socket. And there are some additional things we can do with that. So CoreML, how do you get started with it? First, just the first thing to note is that there are 4 pieces to it. There's the CoreML file, which you can build your own, or you can get one from developer.apple.com. There's a bunch of different kinds that are up there that you can download. And then you stick it into a container field. And that's going to house the file. There's a new script step and a new function that kind of pairs with all of this. The script step is called configure machine learning model. It's going to load that CoreML model, and it's going to then make it available for compute model. Compute model, the function compute model, you supply it a model name and a few other things, and then it's going to deliver JSON back. Whatever the model does, it's always going to deliver JSON back. You do have an option to say always return at least 1. So if your probability, is not, if it doesn't match your probability threshold, you can still get 1 result that maybe is like 10% match or something, just so you get something. I think I have 2 more things here, and then we'll get into demos. Siri Shortcuts. For people who don't know, on the latest iOS version, we have shortcuts. So the way a shortcut works is you say, hey, Siri, I want to do X. And it'll take that phrase and it'll check its shortcuts and say, do I have something that matches that? And then run a set of behaviors based on that match. And we're going to demo an example of that later. But the way you do it is you right-click on your script step and on your script, and you enable scripts for Siri Shortcuts by saying enable shortcuts donation. And then when the user opens their Shortcuts app, they're going to see FileMaker Go in there, right? And then they will be able to see the list that were donated to Shortcuts through that. And then they can fold that into whatever long chain of shortcut steps. So it can be part of a workflow. All right, the last thing is NFC tags. So I don't have a whole lot of personal experience with this, so I'll just kind of talk through what was supplied. So the idea behind this is that you can quickly get information for things like tagged merchandise, navigate to a specific item in the database based on reading the NFC tag. There is a script step called configure NFC reading. It's got a couple things here. Let me just go to the next slide. So it's going to tell it to start or stop reading tags. It's only on Go. There's a continuous reading parameter, which allows you to just scan a bunch of tags at once until the users can, taps cancel. There's also a timeout for it. All right, so that's all the FileMaker stuff. I do have one more highlight, which is sort of FileMaker related, but it's really about zero configuration, this kind of move to getting into deployment instantly. And so all the steps that kind of have been happening in that space. We have FileMaker Cloud now, but now we can save a new file directly into FileMaker Cloud. We don't have to save it to the desktop and then upload and so on. So this is a nice little polish feature that says, oh, I have a new file. I'm just going to throw it up on my server now, and I don't have to, figure things out. It just knows what team, based on my Claris ID and what teams I belong to, I can upload, it'll create the file, in that space. All right, I have a couple of miscellaneous things, and then I think we have a demo, or more than one demo. So this is in the miscellaneous category, but I think a lot of people have been waiting for this. Cards are now supported in FileMaker WebDirect, which I think is pretty cool. Ronnie just shared, everybody else is on mute. I don't know, I think it's exciting. Layout mode shortcut, I haven't played with this one too much, but if you recall that, on Windows, if you have 5,000 layouts, it's this really long list. You can switch layouts by name, which should save you a couple of keystrokes. Page count. Page 3 of 10. Have you ever wanted that? We now have that. So that's nice. Open a file when FileMaker Pro starts. This is, I believe I have this right. If you ever built a starter file, like a shortcut launch file for a solution to get them so you don't have to get the starter menu, this is that, or to make that obsolete. You can specify a file that should always be connected to when a user launches FileMaker Pro, and then they'll get prompted with credentials or whatever. So again, more polish around the user experience. There are in-product links to the Claris Marketplace in strategic places, I believe on the start screen for one. And on the macOS side, we've got a few more kind of polished things. Support for dark mode, drag and drop installer. You no longer have to click through a bunch of things. You just drag it into your applications directory, which is really nice. And high efficiency image format, image support. I think that's what it stands for. It's what your iOS saves images as by default now. This is also nice. I'm going to hand the baton to, I believe we said Beth was going to go next.
Like Colin said, Core ML is a framework that Apple introduced a while back, and it lets computers teach themselves certain things. And now Claris has incorporated that into FileMaker. And they gave us this nice little file to experiment with. So today I'm going to show you a little bit about that. And then after that, I'm going to show you the Siri shortcuts. So we'll start with the machine learning. Machine learning models can help you do all kinds of things now, houses and light bulbs and so many things in the world are now controlled by computers, and we're starting to get that ability now in FileMaker. There is a script step, like Colin said, and a function, and those things work together with a model file. And you can go to the web and search for Core ML models, and you can get all kinds of things to incorporate. So just a little closer look at the script step again. Configure machine learning model is the step that you would use, and then you're going to give it an operation, a name, and tell it what field contains your model, because that's going to be a container field that has the model data. And then your compute model function has parameters that you can pass to it to let it know what you're going to be looking at. And is it an image? And is there, what the threshold needs to be, and so on. So we're going to try it with some samples. Now, the file that we started with had a bunch of things already in here, and then I started playing a little bit more. So we'll start with this landscape one. This one was designed to predict the number of hours of service that it would that could be performed for the first year for a potential customer. So you gather the information of what size is the property, and how many trees do they have, and how many employees are going to be working on this job, and so on. So with this data that we're going to pass through the parameters, we're going to run the model and get an estimate of how many hours for this customer. So I'm going to hit the button to trigger the script, and oh wait, we've got a warning here. Model not loaded, okay? So just to make you aware, you have to load the model before you can run it. So you're going to have to add that into your scripting. We'll go ahead and say load. I could have just hit this switch up here, but it was more fun showing the error and clicking the button. At any rate, we ran the model, and it tabulated all of the information, and it found from the model the hours for the first year are going to be about 803.5, 804 hours for this customer. Now, if you change, I'm going to clear out what we put there, and let's make it a different size property, and they've only got 17 trees, but I'm going to have 6 people working on this. And run it again, and now this is 265 hours. Okay, so based on what you give it, it's going to use the model to make some predictions. Okay. The sentiment classifier, we'll look at a different model. I've already preloaded the rest of the models, so I shouldn't be getting errors. Let's say, wow, this is great. Okay, so I'm going to type something in here, and I'm going to say run model. And it returned the JSON telling me that was a positive response. Okay, it's looking at a sentence and trying to make a prediction. Now, let's try this again and say, I hate this. Run it again. Well, it thought that that was negative, right? So using the model, it made some decisions for us, and it can be pretty helpful. And I'll show you a little bit later how to tie that together. And then I had some fun with this one. The Panda one, it's the ResNet 50 model, and this is image analysis, and it's just this massive database of images, right? So if I run this model, we're all pretty sure what it's going to tell us, and let's run it. And sure enough, the first result with like 99% accuracy is a giant panda, and that's super cool. And then, nothing else really even comes close, but you can see there's still all kinds of data that it returned, but that most recent one is there at the top. Now I'm going to say I want 100% accuracy, which would be a 1, right? So when I ask for 100% accuracy, oh, I wasn't supposed to do that. Hold on. I run the model, and I get nothing because it's 0.999, not 100, right? But if I hit return at least 1 and run the model again, I get a result. So even if that result was less than 1%, I would have still gotten a result with this return at least 1 option there. So you probably are going to want to use that parameter if you end up using this type of model, because you're most likely not going to get this precise in what you're asking for. So I got to thinking, I want to play around with this and see, okay, what's really in here? So I grabbed a picture and I created a record with a bunch of candy canes. And if I run that model, I get all kinds of weird results and nothing close. And that's okay. So I'm going to ignore that one, and I'm going to do this one. I picked a different animal that's black and white because I want to see if it knows the difference between a Dalmatian and a panda, because I know it can recognize a panda. So I run the model, and sure enough, it knew. This is the same model. I didn't do anything to the model file. It just knows. When I threw an image that I found on the internet, it had 99% accuracy that that was a Dalmatian. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then I tried one more time on the candy cane. I thought maybe if I show it just one candy cane instead of a whole pile of them, it will be able to figure something out. And it had no idea that it was candy, but it did recognize it as a hook or a claw, which I thought was, you know, it's getting there. So there's another whole piece to the whole machine learning thing, which is you can modify or update the models to learn, right? So we could give it the data to tell it this is a candy cane, and then the next time this type of picture shows up, it's going to return the result of a candy cane. I have no idea how to do that, by the way, but
yeah,
that's kind of like the next step.
Yeah,
oh, yeah, so, please call in.
Yeah, that, to my knowledge, that does not happen in FileMaker. That happens when you train the model using Core ML. And we could get Ronnie to talk about that toward the end if people have questions about that. And maybe he knows, maybe he doesn't.
All right. So that's it for that how piece, and then I'm just going to pop up this demo page just to kind of tie a couple of those models together. Earlier we were looking at you know, the prediction for the landscaping. So here is an example where, you know, you can pop in. It's the same model. Let's see, there's a lot of trees on this tiny property. I don't even know how you'd do that. And 3 people. And we're going to make a prediction. But there we go. So it's going to be 863 hours. But then let's tie that in with the sentiment model and go to the review tab and look and see, oh, we've got 3 reviews and they're all positive. You know, we can tell there's things in here like wow, and there's exclamation points and loyal customer, and, you know, different words in here that we know have something to do with how the model determines that this is positive or negative. And I'm just going to click through a couple different ones. You know, you can see all these ones that only have 1 review. It's either 100% positive or negative. Here's one, you know, that has 1 negative and 2 positive, and so it knows. 33%. So it's a neat file to play with, and it's a nice introduction into the concepts that we can now use. And I'm looking forward to playing with it more and figuring out how to make it work for my customers. So that's that piece. But now I want to do just a little fun thing. And I'm going to bring up a different app here for a moment. I'm launching my Reflector app, because I want to show you my iPhone. Okay. All right, cool. So hopefully you can see my iPhone on the screen, and something we've never been able to do before. Look, Ma, no hands. Hey Siri, demo Shorty. Okay, so what happened is I used an iOS shortcut to tell it to open FileMaker Pro, or FileMaker Go 19. It does have to be 19. I think it will actually open 18, but you can't run a script in 18. So, but if you want to run a script, you have to have 19. So anyway, I think that was pretty cool, but you know, it's not that big of a deal to be able to just open the file. I want to be able to run a script too. So again, no hands. Hey Siri, demo, do more. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Let's try again. That's the other thing with Siri, you know, it has to recognize your voice and what you're saying. Hey Siri, demo, do more. One more try. Hey Siri, demo, do more. There we go. Okay, so that time it opened the file and it ran a script because this is the same file. It's just one file that I have locally on my iPhone. So I've got a little button there that I'm going to tap, and it says, you know, it's just a list of animals, okay? And I thought I want it to prove that it can do more than just open a file and, you know, go to a different layout. So, hey Siri, demo, big cats. All right, so it took my list and it did a search, and there we go, I've got results. So I just thought that was really fun. Hey Siri, close demo.
To force an app to close, double-click the home button. Then, swipe up on the app's preview to close it.
I don't know if you could hear that through my speaker or not, but it was the voice of, well, my Siri, because I have an Australian male voice of Siri because it's really hot. But anyway, if you give it a command that it doesn't recognize, you get normal Siri behavior. But I want to show you real quickly, this is the Shortcuts app that comes with iOS. And if I open that, I can see, you heard the words I was saying, demo shorty, demo do more, demo big cats. You just have to, you know, remember what you called your shortcut so that it will do it. And I should have said demo close shorty. So anyway, that is it for my part of the demo. I will turn it over now to Mike.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. As Colin mentioned earlier, my name is Mike Ahern. I'm a senior developer here at IT Solutions. I'm pretty excited about the whole JavaScript integration in FileMaker. FileMaker's been able to execute JavaScript in a web version, in a web viewer, since about FileMaker 13. When FileMaker 13 came out, it added the ability to call FileMaker scripts by a URL step. And what that did was it allowed the web viewer to talk back to FileMaker Pro. But it essentially calls FileMaker from outside of FileMaker. So the downsides to this were the following. Prior to 16, it was hard to craft JSON that JavaScript needs to understand the data passed into the web viewer. It didn't work cleanly in WebDirect as it spawned a new session and potentially needed you to log in again. And finally, if you're a developer who has multiple versions of FileMaker on your machine, your computer typically knows what the default version of FileMaker is by whatever the last version of FileMaker you installed. So for most of us, that will be 19, right? But those of us that do development for other clients, if we're doing something and the end user uses FileMaker 17, and we're in 17 testing something out, prior to 19, if you were to click on a web viewer, it would send the script to say, open FileMaker to return the results back. Unfortunately, it would open the file that you're in 17 in FileMaker 19 to open the file. So it was really a bad user experience. So this takes away that hiccup, the way that they've changed the things in FileMaker 19. So what are we gaining in FileMaker 19, right? We're gaining from the JavaScript side, you get the JavaScript function to call the web viewer that is called FileMaker.performScript. And essentially you call a FileMaker script from within the web viewer in the file that you're in, and you pass it JSON parameters. And then on the other side, you get perform JavaScript in web viewer. And what this does is it executes the JavaScript that's waiting in the web viewer to be run. So how does it work? The web viewer needs an object name, and we call it in the new function, along with passing the JavaScript function itself and parameters as JSON into the JavaScript that we want to use. And then the web viewer, and then from the web viewer, we simply call the script by name and pass parameters back to execute the FileMaker script to do something, right? So let's take a look at one of the, here was the two steps, all right, and let me show you the first demo. So I'm going to move this out of the way. On the left here, we have a global field that contains all of the HTML to present the web viewer. The web viewer is this box here with the name, rating, and favorite color, right? And I can show you that in here we have a label for name, and this is the actual name. So if I change this to first and exit out of here, you see that it changes the name of the web viewer, the label in here in the web viewer. So we can edit the text itself to change the HTML that's displaying over here, right? But then we have the green section and the blue section, right? So what are they? The green section is what runs when we pass data to the web viewer, right? So if I hit the, here's the 3 fields in FileMaker over here, and if I modify one of these, it executes this to change the content in the web viewer. And then the blue section is gathering the parameters it needs to pass to the FileMaker script called store data from web viewer form, or from web form, okay? So what does it do? Let's say my first name is Mike, right? And I'm gonna give this rating that. And my favorite color is, let's pick an orange. And submit, and it changed the name, gave it a rating, and gave it a color, right? So if I say, actually it's Colin that's doing it, right? And we're gonna give it a 9. And we're going to make the color something like that and hit update web viewer. So it changes the color back and changes the rating, right? Let's make this rating something smaller so that we can see it change. So it changes the rating there. Okay. So the JavaScript itself, or the HTML here is, the type is range, right? That's what gives it this range thing here. And on here, the type is color. So it's using the default native color picker in Mac OS to generate this, okay? Which FileMaker Pro also uses that same color picker. So I could have put the color picker, actually I couldn't have put it on layout, but I can use it here, right? And I can see using something like this for, say you wanted to give end users the ability to customize menus or something in there, like some of the colors in their FileMaker file. You could have a settings area where you could say, let's make the color of the menu bar blue all the time or something like that. I suspect you could probably do that. I don't know how I would do that, but I think you probably could. Okay. And then one of the other things you can do, the other demo we have is more complex, and it's also bidirectional, right? So this is a chart that's drawn in JavaScript in the web viewer, and it's taking data from the portal below it and presenting it in a 2-sided chart that I think is called a Sankey diagram, right? The code for this one is far more complex, but it's also bidirectional. The HTML isn't exposed because it's really long. I took a look at it, right? So the way this one works, if you hover over any of the boxes on the left or the right, it changes to display just that. Like, so we're looking here and it says the source is a gala, right? The sources are on the right, the average size is on the left. Sources is a gala, and you have 87% of them were large and 13% of them were medium, and the smalls were non-existent, right? So if I click on just gala, we could see that it's, large is 2000, medium is 300, right? And small, I'm going to change this to 90, okay? So now if I go to Gala, you can see that the data over there changed, right? So now it has a little bit of size to it, right? And then we could show all. So you can see that by clicking on it, it's filtering the portal, regardless of which side we click on. And then if we change the data, make this 100 for sources of recurring, we see the large got to 100. So that's it for that. Then I'm going to demo, I think. The potential for what you can do in it is really enormous with JavaScript. And I know for one that I'll be looking to leverage this capability in my work as I'm going forward. And I'm sure a lot of you are probably going to be a little bit anxious about that as well. And like Colin said, there's tons of JavaScript libraries already out there where you can grab chunks of code and add it to FileMaker the way web developers add chunks of JavaScript code to their websites.
There's some rebranding. Obviously, since FileMaker rebranded themselves as Claris in order to accommodate, well, a number of reasons, but the fact that they have more than one product out there really was a big push behind it. They now have Claris Connect and FileMaker, two distinctly different but complementary products. So as an outcome of that, there's some name changes. So FileMaker 19 is going to incorporate Claris branding, such as Claris ID, replacing terminology FileMaker. And then Claris Customer Console is going to replace the FileMaker Customer Console. Advanced is going away as a label. It is not going away as a product. For a while now, Advanced has just really meant you can turn on and off advanced tools in the Pro product. So it's now just called FileMaker Pro, period, and you can turn it on or off as you want. And then the FileMaker platform, it's just being called Claris FileMaker at this point. So with all these name changes, there is one thing to think about. Everything should work, with these name changes out of the box. However, if you use calculations with the get application version function and you're parsing the application name, obviously, if you're doing, contains FileMaker Pro Advanced, that's not going to work anymore. And so you're going to want to be a little bit more nuanced or get the number version, et cetera. All right. Licensing is also an easy talk. There aren't any changes. Same pricing as FileMaker 18. If you're an annual subscriber right now, you just keep getting, what you get now. And then technical stuff. A couple things of note. Claris is trying to support only the most recent operating systems, like 2-back kind of thing. So on Mac, it's Catalina and Mojave. On Windows, it's Windows 10 and Windows 8. On server, it's Mac, Catalina, Mojave again, because it's the same thing. But for Windows Server, 2012 is no longer supported. So it's 2016 or 2019. FileMaker Go, 13.2 minimum. FileMaker Cloud, the browsers, obviously this is for WebDirect. Look, I don't know the numbers. I couldn't tell you the difference between Edge 79 and 80. Just know that it's the most recent versions or close to. I don't know how many versions back, but they're trying to keep parity with modern technology and not have to support, I don't know. Netscape Navigator is not on this list. Let's just say that. Deprecation and removal. So runtimes. Runtimes have been around since the beginning. They were deprecated in FileMaker 14. They've finally been removed in FileMaker 19. And there are a couple of reasons why. So from a practical standpoint, the runtime technology has not been keeping pace with the newer releases. It's still kind of stuck in time, right? They've made no changes to the product. So that's causing increasing issues with new operating systems. And it's just becoming a larger surface area of stuff to support and increasingly impossible to support. So it doesn't meet the quality and excellence standards that Claris is looking for. And that's the situation. It's been a good 5-year run, probably, I guess, 5 or 6 on the deprecation list. All things come and go. So also on the deprecation list is peer-to-peer network sharing. It's not removed from the product. So just again, that distinction, deprecation versus removal. Deprecation just says we are reserving the right to move this, yank it in the future because we've identified it as something that we no longer want to support. Or we're not going to do it today because that would be disruptive. So we're giving you notice that you should consider moving to other technologies because this one's on the chopping block for sometime in the future. So it's deprecated but not removed yet. The expected purpose for this right now is for testing purposes only. It's still being used in FileMaker Go development and deployments. Honestly, I don't know how. Maybe Beth could talk about that. I am a former developer at this point. I haven't really developed in a couple of years. So, the connections are going to stay at 5. I just expect that to go away sometime in the future. Support policy update. I might actually ask Ronnie to clarify some of this stuff, but so the support plan has been communicated to the community for a couple months now. It's live now since 19 is out. Claris is moving to more frequent product releases. So instead of an annual release, we're going to 2020.1, 2020.2. We're at 19 right now. So the next one, I assume, will be 2020.1. 19 does not comprise 2020.1. But that affords the opportunity for more frequent updates, more security updates, more feature updates, without having to wait a full calendar year to receive those benefits. And it allows Claris to be more flexible and agile and iterative in their development lifecycle. So the part that I'm unclear about that I'm going to ask Ronnie for clarification on is what it means to support products 2 years from the initial release. I'll read through a little bit of this stuff, and then Ronnie, I might just have you on mute and just kind of clarify some of this. So a product release, eligibility versus security update eligibility. Product releases are always going to be tied to your maintenance or annual agreement. If you have an active subscription, you're going to be entitled to all of these releases. If you are expired, within the last 12 months, you are still eligible for security releases for 12 months. But then after that, security updates are no longer something that are you're eligible to get. That's my understanding. Ronnie, are you there? Could you just kind of clarify what it means to be 2 years from initial release when it comes to dot releases like 2020.1 versus 2020.2?
Yep, sure. By the way, just to start off, I just want to say, Colin, Beth, and Mike, you guys did an amazing job today. I'm blown away. Great job, presentation and demos. Awesome. I've taken some notes down. You did a great job. So regarding the support products, so just as you said, Colin, we are moving away from these, yearly. Many of you remember kind of years ago, our release cycles were like every 16 to 18 months, right? And then we moved to 12-month releases. So we're moving away from that type of waterfall approach where we have huge masses of releases, and we go from 16 to 17 to 18 to 19. And in the past, our support policy usually was supporting the last 2 versions, right? So we would have supported at this point, 17 would be coming out of support, and then we'd support 18 and 19, right? And that was kind of fairly simple. But as we move away from those massive releases and we go into these, we might be in 19 for a very long time, or whatever is our new numbering might be. So we might have just one version and simply get updates, these releases. So how do we measure how far back do we support, right? Since we don't have 17, 18, and things like that. So the policy is we're going to support 2 years back on the release date. So if we assume that this release is 2020.3 or whatever it is, 2020.1, then we will continue to support that until 2022, first quarter or something like that, or second quarter or whatever. So we'll continue to support this release of FileMaker for the next 2 years, right? After that, we'll only continue to support the last 2 years of releases of the product. And that's just going to help us really kind of narrow the amount of efforts and resources that we have to kind of support older things, because it just takes too much time, and it takes away from us being able to then focus on the future and bringing brand new technology, brand new features, and expanding the platform as everybody deserves. So that's basically what it means. We'll be supporting up to 2 years back of whatever the release was from, so that we can focus on those. Does that make sense?
It does. It does to me anyway. Yeah. So, and actually the annual, the year dot number, that dot number 2, 3, is that the month of the release, or is it just a version number?
Quite honestly, I don't think anybody really understands it. I don't think we have an official nomenclature at this point yet. That might be what the releases within that year.
Okay.
I think that's still being debated. So
okay, well,
I think the
I
takeaway
could
is
give into
2
it.
years. I think it's I think what we have to take away is 2 years. So this release of 19, we can almost guarantee that we will support it for the next 2 years. So up to 2022, around this time, all right, we will support this release of 19.
Right. So if you had a 2020 dot release that was in August, it would be 2022 in August.
You got it.
Yeah, yeah. So if these were month numbers, I don't know, it might look weird to have a 2020.11, but it would tell you when it's going to expire.
Exactly.
Anyway, we are at the end of our.
Would it be okay if I brought up a couple of things that I've heard along the way? So when talking about the core ML portion, yes, while you can find some great core ML models out there, there's a couple other ways of getting models for your apps. Number one is you can actually take models that are in other formats. There are different formats for how machine learning models are built, different frameworks. And the one that we're supporting is Core ML, which is Apple's framework for that, and it's their own format. But Apple also has a bunch of free tools that allow you to convert models from other formats into Core ML. So you can go to Apple's developer website and download. Those are free tools that you can use to convert models from other formats into Core ML. So that's option number 2, right? You get Core ML models already. You can get models from other formats and convert them. Or my favorite, which I think really is where you're going to get the most bang, is creating your own models. And I am not a data scientist myself by any stretch of the imagination, but 2 of the models that Beth showed today, the landscaping customers and the sentiment analysis ones, I built myself in a day. And there are free tools that Apple provides. If you search for Create ML, they've got some really cool, intuitive, easy to use tools to create your own models. You can create things like sentiment analysis one. You can create the one for the one that Beth showed, the landscaping customer one, and you can feed it your own data, created, tested, and they have their own really nice tools or drag and drop kind of thing. The image classifier tools that are built into Create ML are really cool. You basically take all your images, you put them into folders, and you drag and drop them onto the tool, and it spits out a machine learning model. So it's really cool. I highly recommend people start looking at it because you can use your own data to train your models, which I think really is the big benefit of using machine learning. For the Siri Shortcuts, one thing that I kind of like to point out that I saw it in somebody else's demo. I can't remember who it was, but I think it's worth pointing out. Beth did a great job with that. Her demo was really cool. Is that you can just wanted to make sure to pass along that you can pass along parameters too. So the shortcut, the app itself, can pass parameters to your FileMaker scripts when they get launched. So shortcut itself has some ways of retrieving data. So you can use like dictation to translate your stuff. And so you can convert that into text and pass it along to FileMaker. You can take photos and do a lot of really crazy stuff and then pass those along to your own FileMaker scripts, which I think makes it for much more robust and interesting workflows there. And the last thing Mike was mentioning about the web viewers and kind of contrast to what we can do before, and he's dead on with all those things. Like it's absolutely right. One of the biggest complaints I had before this new integration with JavaScript is that if I wanted to update the data that was inside of the web viewer, like Mike showed in the demo there with the chart, if you wanted to update the data, you basically had to reload the web viewer all over again, right? There's no way to inject that data inside of the web viewer. And that's one of the things that this new integration allows us to do, is to send that data in, run a function inside of the web viewer to update in this case, that visualization. But there was no way to do that. And you can do that without having to completely reload the web viewer. So I think, those are huge advantages that we're getting with this new integration.
Yeah, and I ran into that issue with clicking on the web viewer and having it launch FileMaker again when I was developing I was integrating ProMaps for somebody. They bought a copy of ProMaps and I was integrating it into their system.
Yeah.
And it was working fine for me because the version I was testing in was also the version I was running in. It was my default version, right? But when the end user went to use it, she had two different copies of FileMaker on her system. And she was using the older one because she wasn't using the newer one yet. And every time she would click on a map, it would go and reopen it in the new one. And I'm like, I'm not sure why this is doing it. And it took me some Googling to figure out why it was doing it. It was because of how it was calling that.
Yeah.
So I was, when I saw that, I was so excited. I'm like, even if the guys from, that made ProMaps don't release a version right away, I'm going to go in and fix that myself so it just works.
Yeah.
So we do have David Hollander, I think, has his hand raised. Go ahead.
So you discussed the support lifecycle of 2 years, but another issue is how many versions up and down will FileMaker 19 work with? So I question this because looking at the official Claris system requirements document, it didn't list FileMaker 17 as a host, only 18 and 19 server. So I actually emailed sales and I pointed this out to them and they said, no, it's 2 up and 2 down as it's always been. But then you look at FileMaker community and lots of people have tried. You can't connect to FileMaker server 17 from 19. And I sent that to sales and they said, oh yeah, starting with this version, it's just 1 back. So people should be aware, I have a FileMaker server 17 because I still have clients on 15, FileMaker Pro. I can't upgrade myself to 19 because I won't be able to connect to that FileMaker server 17.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
It's sort of piggybacking on what was just asked about the version support. What is the benefit to only allowing support for 2 versions as opposed to 3?
Well, it's the amount of resources, right? So think about the way you create software as well, right? You have to, when you create software, you can make an update to any software for your customers. You have to do testing, right? You have to test to make sure that it still works and it works with everything else that you've built before. So we have to do the same thing. Every time we've done a release, let's say of 19, we have to go back and test it against all the other versions of the operating system. And that takes quite a bit of time and resources. You've got a complete department of QA, have a QA team that does that. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of resources. And those are resources that we could be reallocating to, say, testing and developing the product and moving it forward. Like I said, the Windows Server 2016, we were really late to supporting it, right? A lot of you had complained about it. We were really, really late, and it goes stems to those things. While we are part of Apple, we are, inherently we've got limited resources in and of ourselves, so we've got to allocate those resources as smartly as possible. So decisions have to be made, and I think it makes more sense to keep people in the most updated versions for security and reliability and feature set than it is to, widen the amount of versions that we have to support back. So decisions were made, and I feel it's the right one. I hope that makes sense.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Next time we meet, we'll have pizza, hopefully. So we'll see. Hey, thank you everybody for coming. Again, good to see faces. Good to talk to you guys. We'll as soon as we can get together in person, it'd be awesome. So, all right, have a good day, and thank you. Bye.